Good morning, good morning, good morning. If it is indeed morning when you are. I think it's still Wednesday. A piece of paper thinks it's still Wednesday, so hopefully it is still Wednesday. If it's not, sorry. The story for today is Echo and Narcissus. Quite apt, this story. It's completely random. I am doing them in order. This story should fall today. A very unhappy day for a very narcissistic man on the other side of the Atlantic. So, let's show the picture. Echo was a mountain nymph and a terrible chatterbox. All day and almost all night, streams of words would pour from her lips. It wasn't as if she always had something sensible to say. Most of the time it was nonsense. She didn't mean any harm, but her constant babble could be rather irritating. One summer's afternoon, Echo was chattering away to herself as she wandered through the mountains where she lived. "Isn't it a lovely day? Oh, just look at the sunlight on the trees. Doesn't it make you smile?" she burbled. All of a sudden, the goddess Hera appeared, bustling down the mountain path in tremendous hurry. She stopped when she saw Echo. "Have you seen my husband?" she demanded. "Oh, hello, Hera. Isn't it a lovely day? I was just saying how lovely it was when—" Echo began. "Never mind all that," Hera interrupted crossly. "Have you seen my husband?" "Zeus? Why, of course. Only once or twice," Echo babbled. "He's a very handsome god, I always thought. I don't know of any two gods more suited to one another than—" "Have you seen him today?" shouted Hera, turning red in the face with frustration. "It will be just as pleasant to see him today as any other," Echo replied brightly. "I think it would be pleasant to see just about anyone today." Hera could stand it no longer. She seized the nymph by the scruff of the neck. "Stop talking such nonsense," she yelled. "From now on, you won't be able to prattle on like this to anyone. In fact, you won't be able to say anything at all apart from repeating what anyone else says to you. Is that absolutely clear?" "Absolutely clear," said Echo as timidly as a mouse. Hera let go of her and stormed away. Echo spent the rest of the day alone and in silence, unable to speak a word. At first, she thought she might be suffering from shock. The next morning, she tried to speak, and she still couldn't squeeze a single sound past her lips. Her heart sank. Hera had meant every word. Only when a little bird landed on a nearby branch and tweeted merrily at her could poor Echo speak. "Tweet, tweet," she repeated miserably back at the bird. Later that day, she was wandering silently along a rocky path when she bumped into a young man coming around the corner. He was so handsome, she stopped in her tracks and smiled at him. It was love at first sight. Unfortunately for Echo, the young man was so handsome that he was used to people falling in love with him, and it had done his character no good whatsoever. "What do you want?" he asked rather rudely. You want, was all Echo could say. "Want me, do you? Everybody wants me. I'm Narcissus," scoffed the vain young man. "What makes you think I could love you?" "I could love you," Echo repeated hopefully. "Well, I could never love you," snapped Narcissus. "Love you," was Echo's sad reply. Poor Echo was so in love with Narcissus that she couldn't bear to leave him. She trailed after him, unable to say anything other than repeat whatever he said. Narcissus grew tired of her, and because he wasn't the kindest of young men, he told her so in no uncertain terms. Eventually, unable to get rid of her, Narcissus simply took to ignoring her. He was thirsty from all the walking he'd done that day. So when he came to a clear mountain pool, he crouched down to drink from the still water. As he drank, the sun came out from behind a cloud and shone brightly into the pool, showing Narcissus his own reflection. He'd never seen it before, and now as he bent to drink, it looked as if his lips were meeting those of another person leaning towards him in the pool. He sat back in surprise. "Did you just kiss me?" he asked the face, blushing with pleasure. Looking every bit as surprised as he was, the face in the pool mouthed the same words. "I don't mind," Narcissus said shyly. "I think you're beautiful." "You're beautiful," Echo repeated wistfully behind him, while Narcissus only had eyes for the face in the pool. He smiled as the face smiled back at him. The young man felt a fire rise in his chest that he had never felt before. He'd fallen head over heels in love with his own reflection. He bent forward in a rush to kiss the face again, but in his eagerness he broke the calm surface of the pool and the face disappeared. Narcissus was filled with despair. "Won't you be mine?" he cried out. "Be mine," Echo repeated mournfully. The water fell still, and the reflection appeared once more. Narcissus stared at the sad face before him. Tears welled up in the boy's eyes, just like those in his own. It was then that Narcissus realised who the face was. "It's me," he whispered. "I'm in love with Narcissus." "I'm in love with Narcissus," repeated Echo's barely audible voice. Despite realising his mistake, Narcissus still couldn't drag himself away from his own reflection. He remained there, staring longingly into the pool until night fell. When the moon came out, he rejoiced in the reflection's dim reappearance. When the sun finally rose, he smiled in relief at himself. Day after day, he lay there beside the pool, the rest of the world entirely forgotten. Echo couldn't bear to leave either. She watched with despair as the young man she loved grew pale and thin. Gradually the bloom faded from Echo's own cheeks, and her face paled until she could barely be seen in the harsh sunlight. In fact, soon her body itself began to fade. Gradually she pined away for her love, till she was nothing but a voice on the breeze, repeating its every sigh. Not that Narcissus noticed. He was completely absorbed in himself. He watched his own cheeks grew paler and thinner, his eyes burn even more feverishly with love. Eventually Narcissus dwindled away to nothing at all. In his place, on the side of the pool, a yellow flower grew, which has been known by his name ever since. As for Echo, her voice remained blown by the wind to different parts of the world. Being a mountain nymph, she prefers to haunt mountainous or rocky places. If you call out in places such as those, sometimes you may hear her mournfully repeating her words, your words, back to you. So there you go. That's got a few things wrapped up in it. It's another one of these explanation for things that that people didn't know about because they hadn't got science yet, or at least much science. But, Thales Miletus, he was about. What's an echo? It's this nymph, and she's died, and her voice is on the wind. So that's one thing. But also, I think it's a cautionary tale. It's another moral cautionary tale. Don't be too vain. Being really vain, it's not good for you. It's not good for you. You end up falling in love with your own reflection, dying. Be kind to others, but also there's that there's that classic, and you get a lot of Greek myth that the gods being incredibly cruel for no reason, which I suspect is possibly what it felt to be alive in ancient times when terrible things could happen. You had no idea why they were happening. Be it earthquakes or plagues or sort of even just really big storms. You would, it's the gods. Why are the gods always being mean to me? So there is that with Hera as well. Anyway, challenge. So not as easy to come up with challenges as some others. There is obviously the two that I always go with. You could just rewrite that tale. You could rewrite that tale. Or you could do a nice illustration or make a model of some kind. You could make a model of the pool and Narcissus staring in with sort of Echo behind. Either junk model it, or if you've got the right bits of Lego, you can have a go at that. If you did want to do a different sort of story based on it, then you could tell the story from a different point of view. You could write it from Narcissus's point of view. He was just minding his own business when this crazy nymph came up to him. You could almost write like a newspaper report. You could do a factual report. Young pretty man falls in love with own reflection. You could do your own newspaper front page about it. Or you could retell it with a different ending. I think the Greeks did love a tragic ending to their story, possibly because they thought it underlined the message. So if somebody, they're walking in the agora and somebody is sort of preening themselves, people might be able to go up to that person and say, you know what happened to Narcissus, don't be too vain and stuck up, and hopefully that moral lesson would be learned for this pretty youngster. So I would say if you wanted to write it more in the fashion of a kind of sort of traditional tale, fairy story, where somebody learns the error of their ways in time to do something about it before they die or whatever, then you could do that. Perhaps in some way Narcissus realises what's happened and somehow gets Echo her voice back. Perhaps Echo does something to make Narcissus realise that he's going to waste away and die, and in return somehow Narcissus gets her voice back for her, or something. Either way, you could change the ending and make it perhaps a more positive one, maybe. So there you go. That's your Greek myth for today, the story of Narcissus. So hopefully everyone is keeping safe and well, and we'll see you when you see you. Take care.